Hello my amazing people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, if you are new, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayna and I have another true crime case for you today. Just my usual disclaimer, this is all information that I have found online that I've compiled into a video for educational purposes. I had to switch locations again. I know the echo is kind of rough. I apologize for that, but I did want to still post the video. I actually just stumbled upon this case recently, so let me know if you guys have heard about it before. It's a really tragic and sad story that I wanted to bring to you all, just a remembrance of Allie and to honor her legacy. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining me today, and let's get started. Alexandra Elizabeth Kemp, better known as Allie, was born on October 11th, 1982 in Leawood, Kansas. Leawood was known to be a quaint, quiet community where everybody knew everybody. Neighbors were friendly, and it was considered to be a very ideal place to live, with tree-lined roads and friendly faces all around. Allie was a charming girl with a loud, booming, hearty laugh, and she had a really kind spirit. Her dad described her to be extremely hardworking, and she was really determined. Anything that she wanted to do, she really set her mind to it, and was known to just be this like down-to-earth and beautiful girl as well. Allie grew up in a really close, tight family with both of her parents and two brothers, and she had a goal one day of making it out to Russia to help children in need. That was something that she always wanted to do when she was growing up, and at the time of this case, she actually was in college, and she was 19 years old. The school that Allie attended was Kansas State University, and she had just finished her freshman year. She was an honor student. She was doing really well in school, but she also was excited to come home for the summer. And in June of this year, she was at home and had actually decided to pick up a job at the neighborhood pool, which was called Foxborough Pool. This was a place that a lot of people in the neighborhood frequented. It wasn't extremely busy of a place, but she was excited to work there because her high school sweetheart and her brother both worked there. So it was like a place that she was comfortable and just knew it would be a nice kind of gig to have over the summer, just to have a little bit of cash until she went back to school. On June 18th, 2002, Allie was scheduled for a normal shift. She showed up at 12 o'clock. It was actually cloudy out this day, so she expected that there wouldn't be many people at the pool. It was pretty much just her by herself. And she was waiting for 5 o'clock to come because she knew that her brother Tyler would be coming to relieve her from her shift. About halfway through her shift, she decides that she wants to call her friend Laurel just to see if she wanted to come hang out. Like I said, there was nobody else at the pool, and Allie was bored, so she calls her friend Laurel, says, "Hey girl, come on over, just hang out with me until my shift is over." And Laurel says, "Okay, cool, no problem." When the two of them get off the phone, Allie does then call her boyfriend Phil, who actually missed her call. So Laurel makes her way over to the pool, and when she gets there, she doesn't see Allie sitting in the lifeguard seat. She doesn't see anyone, but she does see Allie's things, so she knows that she's probably nearby. So she decides to wait in her car, and she just beeps her horn to see if Allie comes out from anywhere. Maybe she was in the pool house, and she does see someone come out of the pool house, but it's not Allie, it's actually a man. And Laurel freezes because she's like, oh my goodness, that might be Allie's boss, and I don't want her to get in trouble for calling me over here to hang out with her while she's supposed to be working. So Laurel actually decided to just leave, and the guy walked out of the pool house, waved at Laurel, and he got in his own car to drive away. And Laurel was like, look, I'll just catch up with Allie later, and she decides to go home. So Allie's brother Tyler shows up for his shift as normal. He gets there around 5 p.m. and he sees Allie's belongings by where she normally sits by the pool, but of course there was no sign of Allie at this point still, and he starts to panic. He looks in the pool house, he looks around the pool, but he's a young guy. He doesn't really know what to do in the situation, so he decides to call their father, whose name is Roger, and Roger makes his way down. Like I said, this is in a neighborhood that is close by everywhere. Like the Kemp family only lived 4 blocks away from the Foxborough pool. So Roger gets there pretty quick, and they both start frantically looking for Allie. At this point, it's about 5:15 p.m. Now, as a father, Roger's worst nightmare would be to find his daughter in a bad condition or under the water, but the first place that he decides to look is in the deep end of the pool, thinking maybe by some strange circumstance she drowned, but he doesn't see her anywhere in the pool. So he decides to go into the pool house, and it's in complete disarray. It's an absolute mess. It looked like a tornado hit this pool house. But he walks in, he doesn't see anything. He's looking around. There's no sign of Allie, but he's like, she has to be somewhere. And he takes a second, he slows down, and he looks again, and he sees a leg and a foot sticking out from underneath a tarp inside the pool house. He has this feeling of just grief and shock that comes over him, but he runs over to where he sees this human leg. He removes the tarp, and he realizes that it is his daughter, Allie. She is in really, really bad shape. She's bruised up, there's blood everywhere, and he can't tell if she's breathing. So he grabs his phone, he makes a very heartbreaking and heart-wrenching call to 911. When I say it's heartbreaking, I mean it's absolutely devastating to hear the pain in this father's voice. But he makes this call to 911, and they ask if she's breathing. He says, I don't know, and he's just on the ground holding her until police and ambulance arrive on the scene. And the whole time he's with Allie, he's just begging her, like, you have to pull through, I'm right here, you have to keep breathing, come on. But when the ambulance took Allie to St. Joe's Hospital, unfortunately she was pronounced to have passed. So again, Allie's body was in really bad condition. She had broken fingers, she had broken nails, she had strangulation marks around her neck and ligature marks around her neck. She had bruises all over her body. There was blood everywhere, and it was very clear that Allie had put up a fight against whoever had come into the pool house and done this to her because of the condition of her body, but also because of the state of the pool house itself. Like I said, it was a disaster. Stuff was strewn everywhere. It was clear that a struggle had taken place and that it was a lengthy struggle. Allie didn't go down without a fight. So police bag and tag everything. They take everything in for evidence, and their main hope and priority was to get some DNA from the scene, hoping that they could get a match for whoever had done this to Allie in their database. So they take everything, and one particular item that they find is an ointment cap that is on the floor, and it just strikes them to take this cap in particular. Like, they just had this hunch that this had to have the DNA of the predator on it. So they take this in for testing, and they are pretty confident from the very beginning that whoever had done this was a local resident. This attack happened in broad daylight. Obviously, there was no one else at the pool at the time. Allie was by herself, as we know, but it happened in a public place where anyone could have showed up at any time. There were landscapers working not too far away. It was in a neighborhood where there were houses literally right there. So whoever did this was bold enough to know that they could get away quickly. So they most likely were a resident of the area, and they most likely knew and had seen Allie at this location prior to that date in June. Before expanding the investigation to look at any suspects, they had to first eliminate those closest to Allie. And the individual who had the most heat and the biggest spotlight on him was her boyfriend, Phil. They had been dating on and off for years at this point. They were high school sweethearts. Phil actually was the person that Allie relieved from the first shift at the pool that day. So he was the one that police were like looking at the closest in the beginning, not as a suspect per se, but just as a person of interest, because they do have to eliminate everyone. And unfortunately, in situations like this, the lover is usually the perpetrator. But Phil actually had a very strong alibi. After he left the pool, he went to his second job, and his boss was able to confirm his alibi. I have also seen sources that say he went home and played video games, but either way, his alibi checked out. And also, Allie had made a phone call to him at 2:52 p.m. and actually left a voicemail. So police were confident that Phil actually was not on the scene at the time that this happened to Allie, and the estimated time frame that they believe the attack took place was between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. And like I said, that phone call came at 2:52 p.m. So they were pretty confident that Phil couldn't have been on the scene at the time of the attack. Phil has mentioned the guilt that he's experienced since the loss of his girlfriend, Allie. I can't imagine what that must feel like, knowing that that phone call could have came at a time where she was in dire need of his help. It's possible, we don't know for sure, but the attack could have happened right after she left that voicemail, and maybe if they had been on the phone, the attacker wouldn't have struck at all. And Phil has mentioned the guilt that he's experienced since all of this went down, and I really feel for him. I can't imagine what that feels like. Of course, it's not his fault at all, but we all know the kind of feeling you get when something bad happens and you think what you could have done differently in the situation, even though it's totally out of your control. But nonetheless, Phil was totally eliminated as a suspect, as well as all of Allie's family, so they knew that nobody close to Allie was involved in doing this to her. There were landscapers doing work not far from the pool area, and they had mentioned to police around the time where police were flooding the scene to collect evidence and do all of the things. The landscapers came to police and told them that they had seen a strange man around the pool area in the bushes with binoculars and a camcorder in the days leading up to the attack on Allie. But not only that, they also noticed a Ford pickup truck that they said was beige in color that had kind of been driving in and out of the parking lot of the pool over and over again. And they didn't know, obviously, who this person was, but that was the only thing that they kind of noticed was out of place the day that the attack took place. So the police take this into consideration, and they know that whoever did this most likely had been watching Allie for some time. And Allie's friend Laurel, who was actually at the pool that day, had an epiphany when she found out that Allie had passed. And she was like, oh my goodness, I probably saw the person who did this to her that day and mistook him for being Allie's boss. So the day that she came and was beeping her horn, the man that walked out of the pool house that she assumed was Allie's supervisor, she was like, oh my goodness, that's probably whoever did this. And she goes to police, and they get together, and she helps them with creating a composite sketch of the man that she saw. She saw him kind of from a distance, so it was a little hard for her, but she actually did an incredible job with helping the sketch artist to create a composite sketch of who she saw that day. And it's interesting because she does say that while she thought it was Allie's boss, he did kind of seem creepy. Like, she just got a weird feeling from him, and the combination with worrying that she was gonna get Allie in trouble and also just kind of being weirded out were the reasons that she left. So her gut instinct obviously was a good thing in her leaving the scene quickly, but she had no idea that day until she looked back, and of course hindsight is 20/20, and she realized that yeah, she did kind of get a weird feeling about the way that the man was looking at her and waved at her that day. So the composite sketch is drawn and it's sent out to the community, and the community had been absolutely terrified after the incident took place. This area was known to be very safe, very quiet. Tragedies like this were not known to happen in this area, so the people in the community were just like shook. And when the composite sketch came out, police said that there were leads coming in left and right. I mean, from every direction. They said that people were turning in their own family members. People were saying that they thought it was their brother-in-laws. Like, people were coming out the woodwork saying, look, this sketch looks like such and such. But it was a pretty generic description. A white man, average height, average build. And while police were following up on every lead and stretching themselves thin, like paper thin, to figure out who had done this to Allie, it was to no avail. In the beginning, they really were having trouble nailing down a solid lead and taking it from there. But the police department did put 100% effort into Allie's case. This is one of those cases where I can actually say, like, the police department really went forward with a strong investigation from the beginning. So I do commend them for that, but they were having trouble, even though they were exhausting all of their resources, all of their officers and detectives to help find whatever happened to Allie. They were really struggling. And something that had stumped everybody was the fact that Allie was such an easygoing and kind girl. She didn't associate with anyone who would have wanted to hurt her. She didn't drink, she didn't do drugs, she didn't do anything that would have put her in harm's way by her own actions, right? And even if she was involved with people, it still wouldn't warrant what happened to her. But it just goes to show how much more difficult it made finding a starting point for this, because Allie didn't have any track record of associating with people with criminal records or bad histories. So police were really stumped for a little while. One of the first people of interest was a man named James Straiter. Straiter, who worked about 20 minutes from the pool area, and he actually had a pickup truck that looked very similar to the one that the landscapers described they had seen that day driving in and out of the pool parking lot. This man was a very close match to the sketch. I mean, he does look pretty similar to the sketch, I'm not even gonna lie. But when police questioned him, he was adamant that he had nothing at all to do with it and that he had been at work the day that this happened. And his boss confirmed his alibi, and even though the police and public were very skeptical of him, he was cleared of any involvement. Remember I told you about the little ointment cap that was found inside of the pool house? DNA results did come back from this ointment cap that were found to be different than the DNA of Allie herself, so they knew that this belonged to whoever did this to her. But when they ran it in the database, there were no matches that came back, and this was absolutely defeating, but at least they knew that they had the DNA of whoever did this, and if they did have a suspect in custody in the future, they could test this person's DNA against the DNA on the ointment cap. Allie's case was featured on America's Most Wanted, which helped bring in more and more tips. People were calling in with thoughts of who this sketch looked like that they knew in their own community. But even though police were picking through every single lead, it still didn't lead anywhere. But there was information that came out after James Straiter was cleared about him having been involved in 3 sexual assaults of 3 different women. Police were like, okay, maybe we should loop back around just to dig a little deeper with him. Like, they had questioned him and his boss had given him an alibi, but they hadn't actually tested his DNA against the DNA on the ointment cap. This time around, they wanted to get an actual sample to make sure that they could eliminate him with 100% certainty. And James Straiter became a little difficult to find. It took about 3 weeks before police could get in contact with him for the second time. And they only came across him because he was reported for stealing gas from a gas station, like 24 bucks worth of gas. He drove off and didn't pay. And when the attendant at the gas station called the police, he got pulled over. He admitted he stole the gas, and this then gave the police in Kansas the ability to touch base with him and see if they could get a DNA sample. And they questioned him a little bit more vigorously this time, and he was like, look, I agree with you. I look like that sketch, but I can assure you, regardless of anything else that I've done, I have not done anything to Allie. I'm not the person that you're looking for in this case. He actually agreed to give a sample of his DNA, and it came back not to be a match, so he officially was eliminated and cleared for a second time. Roger Kemp was feeling very defeated around this time, but he was determined to find justice for his daughter. He was at the police station every single day to follow up on any leads that they had and to see if he could do anything to help. I mean, the police actually let him be involved to a certain extent, as much as they thought was reasonable, because he was very even-tempered, very level-headed, and having him around didn't hinder the investigation at all. In fact, he did a lot to help. He wasn't an overly emotional parent that was accusing the police of not doing enough. Instead, he just did everything that he could and stayed very calm and collected throughout the entire process. Roger called and convinced America's Most Wanted to air Allie's episode again, and they were like, we already did it for you. And he says, I know, but it's been months and I still have no answer, and I need you to run her episode again. And they were like, this man is really determined. They ended up running Allie's episode for a second time, and more leads kept pouring in. Roger also contributed $25,000 as a reward to whoever could help bring the killer to justice. And the city matched this, making the total reward money $50,000 for whoever could give information leading to the discovery of who did this to his daughter. One day when Roger was driving down a major road in the town, he had this epiphany. Now, he had been putting articles in newspapers, he had been posting flyers himself, he had gotten the episode on America's Most Wanted, he was doing everything he could, but he had this moment where he saw a billboard and he was like, what a perfect place to put the composite sketch. Obviously, people in the community are doing the best that they can, but inevitably our story is probably not reaching everyone. So if we put it up on this billboard, all the people who may be too busy to watch the news or, just haven't heard about the case yet would be able to see and possibly help us get more information. And this billboard company actually allowed Roger to put the composite sketch on the billboard totally free when they heard about why he wanted to rent this billboard, and the leads kept pouring in. They kept pouring in, they kept pouring in, and this idea by Roger actually turned out to be the best recommendation, the best idea he could have possibly come up with. 2 specific tips came in with the exact same name of Teddy Hoover, and police were like, we got 2 tips about the same person. Teddy Hoover looked exactly like the composite sketch. He drove a pickup truck similar to the one that the landscapers had mentioned to the police. And not only that, he also worked in pool maintenance. So police were like, oh yeah, we gotta follow up with this one. When Hoover was confronted by police, he was fidgety, he was nervous. He answered their questions, but when they proposed that he give a DNA sample, he declined, and he got a lawyer very quickly. And police were reviewing their files just to see if his name had been involved anywhere else prior to this date. And they were shocked to find that Teddy Hoover's name actually was in the original incident reports when police were on the scene at the pool the day that they found Allie. Teddy was one of the people there answering questions for the police, basically pretending to be a concerned citizen, trying to help them with anything he may have seen that day. And it just dawned on them, like, the person who most likely did this was under their nose from the very beginning. And when I say the very beginning, I mean we're almost at 2 years at this point from when this happened to Allie. And they're like, oh my gosh, it's been all this time and this guy was right underneath us. And they don't know with 100% certainty, but they know that they have to do everything they can to get a DNA sample from this man. So as police are trying to contact him, they actually get really terrible news from his lawyer that he was on the run. The lawyer was like, look, I don't know where he went. And police are frustrated because they know that he is obviously on the run to avoid having to respond to a warrant for his DNA and to avoid arrest. But they actually get a tip that he was spotted in Connecticut, and when they made their way out there, they did find him living with his girlfriend at the time, and they found that his name wasn't Teddy Hoover at all. His name was actually Benjamin Appleby. And he tried to play stupid from the beginning and basically say, like, I'm Benjamin Appleby, I don't know a Teddy Hoover. He tried to use that as a way to kind of tell police that he wasn't actually the person that they were looking for, but they didn't fall for it. They obviously knew who they had talked to, and they knew what he looked like, and they knew that this was the guy, so they did take him in for questioning. When they got Appleby into the interrogation room, they set it up to make it look like they had so much more evidence against him than they actually did, because they wanted him to crack under pressure. And their plan worked, because when he got into the room, almost immediately he broke down and confessed. He started crying and he said, look, I did it. It was me. And it happened in a moment of rage. He said that he was at the pool that day because he actually wanted to inquire with whoever owned the pool about becoming one of their maintenance workers. And he was in the pool house. He saw Allie. He thought she was beautiful, and he tried to hit on her. He was like trying to talk to her, and he actually went up to touch her inappropriately, and Allie punched him in the face. And when she did this, he just lost it and went into a fit of rage, started punching her. And he says that he doesn't remember exactly what happened, but that he knows that he was the person who did this, who killed Allie. Appleby did tell police that he planned to sexually assault Allie, but when he heard Laurel beeping the horn outside, he got spooked and left the scene. Basically, after he strangled her, he was planning on sexually assaulting her, and the ointment cap was actually ointment that he was planning to use as a lubricant. And I know that is very horrible to listen to, and it's a very bad thought. But the DNA that was on the ointment cap was confirmed to be that of Appleby. Appleby initially told police that he was just grief-stricken, he felt awful for what he had done, and that he wasn't going to put the family through a trial. He was going to plead guilty. But of course, he switched his story up at the last minute, pleaded not guilty, and they went to trial. Luckily, he was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 50 years in prison. Appleby has tried to get his sentence reduced, but at this point it still stands. He has made appeals, they've been denied, and it's just awful to think about that somebody who could do something so terrible would still think that they are entitled to be free and potentially harm somebody else. And Roger has spoken out against this very clearly. He's made it very clear that he does not want Appleby to be released, that he's a monster, that he shouldn't have the opportunity to do this to someone else. And Appleby is basically trying to pick apart the laws and say that the way that his case was handled entitles him to a reduced sentence. But like I said, he has been incarcerated still with the 50 years, and he won't be eligible for any sort of release until 2055. Allie's parents started a self-defense class for girls and women who might find themselves, unfortunately, in a situation like their daughter did. And while it doesn't solve the issue of sick people attacking other people, it does give women the confidence in knowing that they have some sort of skill in defending themselves. And it's called the Take Defense Allie Kemp Educational Foundation. I will put their website down below. They do not charge for their classes as far as I am aware. They do take donations, and they take donations by Amazon Smile, which I actually didn't even know was a thing, but I will put the link to that in the description box below in case you would like to donate in some capacity. I think it's a really beautiful thing. As a woman myself, I just, I've thought about it. I've thought about maybe taking self-defense classes. My mom actually had me and my sister in karate when I was young. I got up to, I think, an orange belt. I don't even remember, orange or green. But I was so young that all the skills that I learned, since I didn't keep doing it, I've lost. So it's something that's actually very interesting, and I'm gonna look into that for myself. I always like picking up new hobbies and trying different things. So that might be something that I try for myself. If you are a young woman, obviously, if you can take a self-defense class, there are YouTube videos on self-defense. You can find information, just like really good skills, like if somebody attacks you from behind, how you can get them off of you. Stuff like that is really cool to know. And the conversation of we need to be teaching men not to attack women instead of teaching women how to defend themselves is 100% valid, and I absolutely agree with that. Unfortunately, though, the reality that men like this, women too, people who are willing to hurt other people exist. So with that in mind, while we can continue to teach our children to be good people and the importance of not hurting other people, we also need to teach our children how to defend themselves and the things that they can do to keep themselves safe. Allie's dad is really commendable. He was actually invited to the White House by former President Barack Obama himself and received a citizenship award for his involvement in bringing Appleby to justice in Allie's case. And Roger does deserve all the accolades, all the applause, all the admiration for the hard work that he did. He worked as if he were a police officer. He didn't work from emotion. He didn't work from anger, rage, sadness. He worked like this was his job, because he knew that he had to work this way in order to find who did this to his daughter. And it's really just an awesome thing to see that now he has the answer. And he has said that, the closure didn't feel how he thought it would feel. It didn't feel as good as maybe he had imagined, but still the person who did this is behind bars, and with that he can sleep a little easier at night. And that moment of epiphany of thinking like, maybe I should just do this billboard idea, literally solved the case, which is incredible. That is the story of Allie Kemp. Tell me what you guys think about this case. If any of you are from the US or from Kansas in particular, did you hear about this case back when it was happening in the early 2000s? I know that I was young at the time, so I wouldn't have been aware of any cases like this, but I know my viewers, there are quite a few viewers between the age range of 30 to 50 who watch my channel based on my analytics on my YouTube studio. So do any of you remember this happening? Have you heard this story before? And did you see the billboard yourself? That would be interesting to hear about. But I just want to thank you. If you made it this far, you know what I'm gonna say, you are loyal. You really are. And I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful morning or afternoon or evening, depending on what time it is when you watch this video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.